Lesson 8 of the eCourse Safety Analysis in the Process Industry is the final video in the series, which documents the spreadsheets the HAZOP facilitator will include in his final report to the consultant. The consultant then issues the report with the completed recommendations to the client. This lesson is part of the eCourse, which can be downloaded from the internet at hazopfacilitator.com. To include some of the documentation we would consider in a process hazard analysis or a PHA for a what-if analysis instead of a HAZOP analysis, we will highlight some of the differences between the two. On this first slide, we show the heading of the what-if report which will be issued. It shows the revision number, the date of the meeting, the description, and the names of the facilitator and the project engineer of the consulting company. Page 2 of the report is a completed copy of the attendance register, which documents all the necessary information regarding the what-if meeting. Page 3 is a copy of the recommendation list and the responsible party. Note that this list is issued incomplete in the facilitator's report, as the facilitator has completed his work, issues this list as part of the report, and it is then the consultant's responsibility to complete the recommendations with the client. The what-if or HAZOP is only complete when all recommendations are actioned, whether they be accepted or rejected by the client. Page 4 is included for completeness. It is the node used in the what-if, showing node number 1, and was the node decided on by the facilitator and the process engineer before the meeting or by the team during the meeting. The important items in the node are the inlet valves HVX1 and HVX2 and the spectacle blind on HVX1, which is locked closed. T1 contains the LSD and T2 the ULSD. There is also a dead leg in the piping after the tanks. Pumps P1 and P2 are also shown. Page 5. This spreadsheet is the complete what-if record input form and is projected onto the screen, and the facilitator will work through all the columns with the participants. Column 1. This is the description of the node as depicted on the P&ID. Column 2 is the section of the process which the team will firstly discuss. Column 3 is the what-if questions that the team will consider for that subsection. The what-if questions are the equivalent of the parameter and guide word we use in a HAZOP PHA. What-if question 1, line up to tank 2 is still open when the tank T1 is lined up to be filled with LSD. The what-if question 2, what if the product is contained in the piping dead legs? What if question 3, what if the lines are over-pressurized? We now look at column 4, which are the causes of the what if. Firstly, the cause could be incorrect lineup of the valves. We can also have passing valves, as the second cause. Or we can have 3, the inadequate mechanical box-up. Those are all causes of product going to the wrong tank. We then look at the consequences. Let's take the first one. If there's incorrect lineup of the valves, we're going to get contamination, probably ULSD or LSD into ULSD. And we can also have possible overfill of tank T1 or T2, which depends, of course, on the fill height of the tanks. We can also have causes of passing valves, which will cause, again, contamination and possible overfill of the tanks. And if we have inadequate mechanical box-up, then the result or the consequence could be loss of containment. We look at the severity and the likelihood of each of these what-ifs. We will not consider what-if number 2 and number 3 at this stage, because they are the same as what-if number 1 in terms of procedure. So looking at the first consequences, which is contamination because of incorrect lineup, we have a severity of 3 and a likelihood of B, which is what the team decide. The automatic lookup is done from the risk matrix, which we will show in the next slide. But in here, the automatic lookup will be a risk ranking of 2, and it will be on a yellow background. We then look at 4C for consequence number 2, which gives us a red or risk ranking of 1 on a red background. And after that, we decide what inherent safeguards there are to prevent the consequences that we discussed. Safeguard number 1, to prevent the flow of feed to tank T2, we can close the spectacle blind to tank T2. This will remain as a severity of 3, but the likelihood will improve to an A, which then gives us a risk ranking of 3, an automatic lookup of a risk ranking of 3. The safeguard, second safeguard, is the manual isolation valve HVX1, which is locked closed. Again, this will give us a likelihood of A. And the third safeguard is operating procedures. At least one tank will be emptied prior to lineup. Again, this will give us a 4A. And that is how we work through the complete documentation input form for the what if. We now look at the last slide. The last slide, page 6, is a reproduction of our risk matrix, which was derived from IEC 61508-5 edition 2 by permission, and is merely entered here to show how on our what if record form on the previous slide, we automatically look up the risk rankings. We will not go into detail on this slide, as this is covered more fully in the risk matrix lookup video. This concludes this lesson.